Welcome everyone to week number 4 in Biology 120. This week is all about cellular respiration, metabolism, and photosynthesis, which is not most students' favorite week, but it is interesting and there's lots of good things going on. And I will explain some of the biology so that you don't have to get bogged down in the 3 chapters in the textbook. So please do pay attention and use the resources that I'm going to give you. All right, let's see what we've got going on. So last week we learned about classification of organisms and why it's so important. And the basic classification of organisms is the species level, where these are all like organisms. They have lots of characteristics in common. And if they can interbreed, they interbreed with each other. So that's classification. We learned about types of cells, prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic are the bacteria. Eukaryotic are everything else, including humans, plants, all the other animals, protists like an amoeba, fungi, any kind of mushroom, mole that you can think of. All of them are eukaryotic. And you learned about cell structures, especially in your discussion board where you're talking about targets of antibiotics. You should have learned that bacterial cells or prokaryotic cells are very, very different from our cells. And so that's why we can figure out targets in them to cause them harm and that we don't have those targets. So that is good, so that those antibiotics don't harm us, though we can be allergic to them and things like that. So we learned about cell structures, and you learned about antibiotic resistance in bacteria. If you look at the 10 highest concern public health problems in the world today, antibiotic resistance in bacteria is in that top 10. And that is because we are running out of effective antibiotics to treat bacterial infections. This is a very serious problem. We're going to get to the point where we don't have any antibiotics to treat certain strains of bacteria that are highly antibiotic resistant. It's coming. Okay, this week, read chapters 6, 7, and 8. Skim through them, okay? Skim through them to see what they're about and to figure out where you can go back and look at stuff that you need to look at, all right? If you sit and you read intently for hours, yeah, it's going to be hours, you can get through chapters 6, 7, and 8. I encourage you for some of these assignments to watch my video that I'm going to have. It's an extra little video in the announcement section. To watch this video on aerobic respiration. So aerobic means in the presence of oxygen, not air. Oxygen, that's the important thing in air, versus anaerobic forms of metabolism. And so this includes anaerobic respiration and fermentation. Those are both without oxygen, okay? So you're going to have to make a comparison of these two. Watch my video. It's a lot shorter than trying to figure out all that information in chapters 6, 7, and 8. I promise. And hopefully I can explain it where you can understand it. If you have any questions about my video, please just email me and I will explain. Read the Module 4 introduction and watch the video on the carbonated ocean, because that's very important. It is an offshoot, it's a problem that has to do with climate change. The oceans are becoming more and more acidic because of all the excessive carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And this is causing major problems for marine life. All right. Then what do you have going on this week? You have discussion board postings. You got 3 things due this week. So this is sort of a heavy week for assignments for you. Discussion board postings. Remember that initial post is due by Thursday. Your 2 response posts are due by Sunday. Our photosynthesis and cellular respiration, opposite or complementary or both. Now, this is just something that you ought to learn about in life in general. If somebody asks you a question like that, you absolutely should assume that the answer is both. Otherwise, why did they include that word both? I'm just saying. Because they would have said, are these opposite or complementary? Nope. They said opposite, complementary, or both. So the trick here is to write down the general equations of each one of these. So what the heck is photosynthesis? You take carbon dioxide and water and sunlight, and what do you make? Glucose. Glucose is a sugar. And you make oxygen as a waste product. Okay? That's photosynthesis right there. What's cellular respiration? You take glucose plus oxygen, and you break down the glucose to make what? Carbon dioxide and water and ATP. That's really important for cellular respiration. Okay, so break these down into the simplest formulas that you possibly can, and then you can figure out the answer. You're also going to answer the question about autotroph. So autotroph means self-feeder. So these are all the organisms in the world that do photosynthesis. They make their own food. Would it be cool if we could do that? I could have gone outside today and just stood around and didn't have to eat anything. I just make me some energy from sunlight. That doesn't work. Anyway, so are autotrophs the foundation of all ecosystems? That's a good question. And it's very important because sometimes we totally forget about the organisms that do photosynthesis. We don't really care about them. We care about animals. Cute animals usually, right? Okay. Then in your response post, talk about carbon dioxide release and its consequences, and can we plant more plants to help us with this problem of excessive carbon dioxide? There are big pushes around the world to plant more trees. It started with 1 million trees. There was an organization that sponsored this, planting 1 million trees. And then it went to 1 billion, and I think it's more than that now. I think it's billions of trees to help us with this excessive carbon dioxide problem. So those are your response posts. Your journal entry this week is a comparison of aerobic versus any type of anaerobic respiration. And that includes fermentation or anaerobic respiration. How ancient is glycolysis? So you're going to have to find out what glycolysis it is. It is the beginning pathway of everything that I have listed there. Aerobic respiration, fermentation, and also anaerobic respiration. Glycolysis starts them all. And then you're going to talk about ethanol being used as a biofuel. Ethanol is added to most gasoline products now in about a 10% ratio. But can we use it as a biofuel? Should we be using it? Those sorts of things. Okay, that's your journal entry. So you got discussion board postings, journal entry, and you're going to be working on your topic information. So this week, section Roman numeral 3, remember to write this in outline format like I have it listed here. These are your guidelines. I took it directly from your guidelines. These are the biological concepts of your particular topic. So what's the level of organization? Last week you learned about organization, right? And I've talked about this too. Biosphere means every living part of the earth, all the way down to a species level, all the way down to a cellular level. So what level of organization does your topic impact living things? If you're talking about global warming, then literally the whole biosphere, every living being on the earth, in the atmosphere, down in the depths of the ocean is affected by global warming. If you're talking about microplastics, you're talking about a microscopic level of marine life, and eventually it's going to affect human beings. So figure out which species are affected, which level of organization is affected, and the resources that are affected. analysis. Name 3 biological concepts or processes that pertain to your topic. So if you're talking about eutrophication, which is the aging out of bodies of water, really is what that means. Photosynthesis is very important. Okay, so what is photosynthesis? In this section B, you are telling what these biological concepts are, not how they're related to your topic yet. Just what are they? What is photosynthesis? What is evolution? What is species extinction? Okay, something like that. In section C, you're going to relate your biological concepts to your topic. Oh boy, this is probably the most important section of your whole presentation because you're pulling together biology that you're learning about and your specific topic. That is section C. D, characteristics of life. Choose one of those biological concepts that you picked in B. So, for example, you pick photosynthesis that you mentioned in B. What are they? How does this affect the characteristics of life? Which characteristic of life is affected by photosynthesis? So definitely metabolism and energy production, right? So that's what you're explaining in D. And impact on health is E. Select one of those biological concepts from B and describe how it impacts human or environmental health. You don't have to do both. And you want to include positive and negative effects. So if you're doing global warming, you know, there are lots and lots of environmental consequences of it, and human health is affected by global warming. So is marine life, health. Oh my goodness, just so much. Are there any positive effects? And some people will say, because the argument that some people say for encouraging global warming is that all the ice will melt at the North Pole and all those shipping lanes will be open, and so we can do more commerce. If you're a business person, this might appeal to you. If you are a biologist, that probably is not something that you are terribly enamored with. So anyway, those are your biological concepts. If you have problems with this, because for me, if I were a non-biologist, I think I would have trouble with B. Like, what are the biological concepts that have to do with microplastics or light pollution or, you know, whatever you chose? Well, I don't know where to start. Please just email me and ask me. That's what I'm here for. I can think up some, I promise. I can help you. I can help you figure this out. So just let me know if you have any questions. All right. And then last week, I said that I would tell you about that word that's on the board. I mean, on my wall behind me. And so I'm going to show you this. First of all, the tip of the week, ask for help if you get stumped. I just told you that. I'm here to help you. All you have to do is email me. Now, I may not email you back in 5 minutes. I may be doing something like driving on the interstate. I'll answer you as quickly as I can, I promise. Okay, so, wait a minute, forgot how I have to move. All right, so there it is. There's that word. See that word? Respect. So I'm going to tell you a little story. And this is just a personal story. If you want to skip this, you certainly can. In May, last May, my sister and I went to Scotland on a nature tour. That picture back there on the wall is a picture of one of the golden beaches in Scotland, and literally the sand is gold from the seashells that have been ground up over lots of time. We went on a nature tour, and the very last day of the nature tour, we were going canoeing down the Bewley River. Beautiful, beautiful location. Oh my goodness, just gorgeous. All right, and they had bragged to all of us that no one had ever capsized. Oh, you know where this is going. You know where it's going. So here's me and my sister. You can tell me over there with the wet hair, and there's my sister in the foreground because she's taking a picture. She's my baby sister. Um, yeah, we're standing there soaking wet. And there's another canoe that's come up to help us because our cameras went in the water, as did our cell phones. But I will tell you what, iPhones will survive baptism in the Bewley River. Our cameras didn't. So anyway, what happened? So we were all canoeing down the river. Well, one section was getting a little fast and the water was moving along the right side. Well, there were two guys in a canoe in front of us, and they were kind of wimpy guys. And somehow the one in the back flipped out of the canoe. I don't know how. We don't know how. And so the two tour guides in two other canoes rushed toward them to help them. So there are three canoes all there together. And here are me and my sister. Now remember, the river water is rushing down the right side of the river, and that's the canal that we're in. And we see this log jam in front of us, and one of the tour guides yells out, "Turn, girls, turn!" And I'm in the back, and I'm steering, and I am turning as hard as I can. And all of a sudden, we have the canoe perpendicular to them at this point, and our canoe hits an underwater tree branch. So guess what happens? We flip over. Me and my sister go under the water, completely under the water, and pop back up. And this is what we looked like when we popped back up. We both popped back up and we were laughing our heads off because they had told us in the beginning that no one had ever capsized. And here we are completely drenched. And we're laughing even though we know that both of our cameras are ruined. So this is one of the tour guides in the back of this canoe that you can see. And there you can even see my camera in that picture right there. My old camera. And we're up toward the shore and we are dying laughing. Well, our official tour guide was at the very front of the group of canoes, and he heard us laughing and he said, "Well, I know Janie and Cindy are okay." So anyway, now the water temperature was 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Very, very cold, and a shocker when you fell in. We got back into our canoe and we didn't have any paddles because Malcolm, in this canoe that you can see right here, Malcolm took our oars because he thought that we were going to get out of the river and go to somebody's house and warm up like the two guys did. And so Tobias, the other tour guide, was talking to us, and he said, "Well, y'all are going to get out on the river over here." And my sister and I said, "Oh, no, we're not." And he said, "What?" We said, "We're going to keep on rowing. We're going to keep on canoeing." All right. We had another 3.5 hours of canoeing. And we were determined we were going to do it. We're going to have the whole experience of our Scotland tour. And he was in shock. And so he went over to Tobias and got our two oars, and we paddled for another 3.5 hours down the river, soaking wet. I was so cold because if you can see right there, I have on jeans, and those jeans stayed wet the whole time. I was shivering at the end. So we got to the end. Now, we were really good by the time we got to the end. I pulled us straight in between two canoes, steered us perfectly. We got out. We went up the hill. We got out of our canoe. We went up the hill. Our tour guide said to us, "Respect." And what he meant was, here we were, two crazy women from South Carolina, two Southern women, who got back in our canoe after we were drenched. Now, those two guys in the other canoe, one of them got into water up to his waist, and the other one only got his shoes wet. We were drenched. and freezing cold. And we kept paddling for another 3.5 hours till we got to the end. And so I love that word. So what does it mean for you? Um, it means that you got to stick to it, right? You got to stick to it and keep going no matter how hard it gets, no matter how hard your education is, how hard your journey is. I'm probably going to post a video sometime during this term about the struggles that I had going back to school, because I went back to school after I'd been out for 11 years, and it was difficult. There were many people who were against me going back, including my mother, my sister, um, lots of friends. It was very, very difficult. Plus, I didn't have very much confidence in myself when I went to graduate school. And so I'll probably post that video because I think that's good for you to see that I went through struggles, but I stuck to it. And I kept thinking to myself, I've just got to get through this next assignment, this next assignment, this next assignment. And then I was at the end of a semester, I was starting a new one. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other until I got finished. And that's what you need to do too. And sometimes we need that encouragement. So respect. Stick to it. You can do it. Then you will have respect, even for yourself. I sure did when we got to the end of that canoe trip, because it was wild, but gorgeous. Oh my goodness, I can't explain how beautiful it was there. So anyway, that's my crazy story of capsizing a canoe in the River Bewley in Scotland and surviving another 3.5 hours of paddling with freezing cold clothes on. If you need anything this week, please let me know. And with that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week.